Good afternoon. I'm Heather Hughes, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us today for our Partnering for Success webinar series. Today, we'll be discussing how to build a risk management culture with leadership and buy-in. We will be recording today's webinar and distributing to each of you after today. As we progress through the presentation, please feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat box. We will answer these questions as soon as we can after they're entered. Our presenter today is Public Entity Partners' very own President and CEO, Michael Fan. Fan was raised in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and is a graduate of MTSU and received his master's in management from the University of Mississippi. Fan also earned the Associate in Risk Management designation and the Risk Management for Public Entities certificate from the Insurance Institute of America. As a 36-year veteran of Public Entity Partners, he began his tenure in the Loss Control Department and was eventually named director of same until he was named president and CEO in 2020. He previously served on the board of directors of the Public Risk Management Association, or PRIMA, and served as president of the Tennessee Public Risk Management Association, or Tennessee PRIMA, as well as their board of directors. A member of Tennessee Personnel Management Association and Tennessee Recreation and Parks Association and the Tennessee Association of Chief of Police. I know that you will enjoy the presentation today. So without further ado, I give you President and CEO of Public Entity Partners, Michael Fan.
Thank you so much, Heather, and welcome to everyone this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining our webinar series and at least making me feel good that you tuned in for this program. Just a little bit of background on this particular class. I put this together for PRIMA. Heather mentioned PRIMA a couple of times in my bio. Late October of last year, I presented a longer version of this. We've kind of edited it down for this purposes to make sure that it starts. Hang on just a second. It goes. Sorry, having a few technical difficulties. Hang on just a second. There we go. Anyway, PRIMA asked me to put this presentation together, and I borrowed a few bits and pieces from some other programs on culture, on leadership, on risk management in general, and then added some things. So this is kind of an abbreviated version of that program that we did last October. And while I'm talking a little bit about PRIMA and PRIMA Institute, for those of you that don't know, we offer scholarships to the various. Hang on just a second. All right, maybe now it's going to work for us. Okay, so anyway, we do offer scholarships to PRIMA Institute, the Public Risk Management Association's annual intensive education program that they do every fall. And so I would encourage you to look into that when we get that announced in late summer. Also, a few weeks after that, the Tennessee State Conference, the Tennessee PRIMA Annual Conference, will be the first week of November, and we also offer some scholarships to that. But even if you aren't able to get in on the scholarship thing, we highly encourage you to attend the Tennessee PRIMA Annual Conference that first week in November. So let's go ahead and jump into this thing. Heather mentioned my tenure here at Public Entity Partners, or the animal formerly known as the pool. So for more than 35 years, I've invested my career, literally my entire career, right out of grad school, into trying to build risk management culture. And so we've approached it on a number of fronts here at PEP. Obviously, at the first step is to make sure internally we have a risk management culture. And so we have worked on that for, like I said, for more than 35 years. And then our calling really is to provide assistance to you and the cities and towns and local agencies that we partner with across the state to help you with that, building a risk management culture. And so again, we try to make sure that we support each other, that we support and build a risk management culture for our team, and then do our best to assist you in doing the same for your organizations. So let's talk a little bit about culture and risk management in general. I'm kind of a simple guy, and I try to keep it simple. And so I always say, fundamentally, we're here to be our risk management culture needs to be focused on taking care of your people, which obviously is we're talking about on-the-job safety there, and our workers' compensation risk exposures. So your people, then the public. So that would be let risk management and its culture reduce your liability exposures, and then your property. So taking care of people, the public, and your property, which is conserving your local government assets. So what is a risk management culture? The one thing that we have tried to do for many years here at PEP is focus on the fact that risk management cannot be a separate operation from your technical operations. In other words, it must become a part of what we do, not apart from what we do from a practical or technical standpoint. It all must work together. And so again, it's that becoming a part of what we do. So from there, let's kind of lean back on the late great Peter Drucker, the leadership guru, if you will. He's famously quoted as saying, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." I doubt he actually said that first. There likely were others. But what that means is that, ideally, you want to build a culture that is successful, that it is proper within the industry that you might be working in, and also strategically, you're technically proficient in getting the job done. And so looking at this quote from Drucker, that culture eats strategy for breakfast, what he's essentially saying is culture trumps everything. In business, in any organizational dynamic, we need to make sure we're constantly building a proper culture. So let's talk a little bit about how we do that. We begin with our purpose. In other words, what we're supposed to be accomplishing, whether it's a city government or a police department, fire department, public works or utilities department, parks and recreation, or one of our agency partners, whether it's a human resource agency, a development district, a housing authority, those sorts of things. And it requires the integration of what we just talked about, what we do, the productivity, the technical aspect that we're expected to accomplish, and then integrate that with stewardship, or our desire to constantly keep an eye toward the taxpayer. What is this operation? What is the ensuring of this operation going to ultimately cost the taxpayer? And so when you talk about the stewardship end, you look at productivity. And if I could, I have to paraphrase our good friend, Dr. Rusty Treadway at the city of Sevierville, who famously kind of said, our job is to get things done every day. And we're required by our tax-paying public to be productive. And so I think Rusty's exactly right. Our job is to get things done every day and to do it with an eye toward the taxpayer, with good stewardship. And then we integrate those three things we talked about earlier, taking care of our people, the public, and our property. We integrate all of that into a common focus. Um, so from there, when you start talking about that integration, that requires or creates a need for vision, in my opinion. And this is a slide that many of you may have seen before. And when you start thinking about vision and trying to predict what might happen in the future, it's not always easy. And sometimes it's just completely impossible, as some people call those things black swan events, that there was no way of predicting that or having that become foreseeable. But one thing we do know from over 40 years of working in local government risk management in the state of Tennessee, we know that the courts are going to require us to do some things. That if it's foreseeable, we need to act, right? If it's a foreseeable problem, a foreseeable risk exposure, we're going to have to do something. And so one of the things that we've approached, the approaches we've taken through the years, is to this constant thought process of what could happen, what's foreseeable within this particular technical activity or productive activity. And if it is foreseeable, then you've got to begin a process, what we call the survival checklist of policy, training, supervision, and discipline. These four elements are how you protect yourself. Obviously, the more imaginative, the more wisdom you can apply to your operations, the more things that are going to become foreseeable, then the more things that we need to engage this checklist on. So let's talk about this checklist for a second. And I've kind of already used the word vision a couple of times. Well, that's really what being for things that are foreseeable. You have to have vision to drive your activity that direction. So, first of all, policy. If it's important to you, you write it down. We've learned that in terms of documentation for years and years. For over 40 years of this organization's operation, we've seen the importance of documentation, and that if it's not documented, it probably is not going to be foreseen by the court as even happening. So again, policy, if it's important, we write it down. Then number two, train. You train your people. You have to apply what you've written down across your workforce. And so policy training leads us to supervision, and supervision is designed to implement that policy and training with some consistency. Everybody's not going to be perfect, but our supervisors are critical to make sure that we are applying the things we've written down and the things we've trained on, applying them consistently across the board. Essentially, you simply want your first shift folks, if it's a police department, for example, you'd kind of like your third shift to be handling a particular thing that policy has been written on the same way that second and first shift are handling it. So you want some consistency. And then finally, we've got discipline. And really, discipline are simply your guardrails. To me, discipline is designed to do a couple of things. Obviously, we all know that it's designed to correct improper behavior, but you've probably figured out, if you've been in this business of local government services for any length of time, you've probably figured out what I've figured out, is we've got an awful lot of good people out there working for local government in the state of Tennessee who make an awful lot of good decisions an awful lot of days. And so, yeah, our disciplinary structure is designed to be guardrails. It's designed to correct improper behavior, but really you're more likely to use a disciplinary structure positively to reinforce acceptable behaviors, okay, and avoid validating improper behavior. So you want your disciplinary structure to apply to your entire team. Well, guess what? Most of the time they're doing the right thing. So be sure that your supervisors, be sure your policy and your training are aimed with the goal of reinforcing positive things, reinforcing acceptable activity, acceptable behavior. And yes, every now and then we have to get on the correction side of correcting inappropriate or improper behavior. But that's our survival checklist. If it's foreseeable, then we need to begin the process of doing these four things: writing it down, training our people, supervising to that policy and training, and then creating these guardrails to make sure we are reinforcing acceptable things and correcting unacceptable things. I will say one additional thing about this survival checklist, and if you've been coming to our training for a number of years, you probably have remember the case Canton versus Harris, the U.S. Supreme Court, 1989. That's really where this word foreseeable or foreseeability was kind of applied to local government, Canton, Ohio, in this case. That particular case, the Canton case, said if it's foreseeable and you don't do anything, that reflects deliberate indifference. In the case of the Canton case, was deliberate indifference to the constitutional rights of the inhabitants of Canton, Ohio. And so this is a high stake checklist, if you will, that if we figured out that there's a possible exposure that needs to be addressed, then again, policy, training, supervision, and discipline. Okay, so now let's continue the thought process here as it relates to foreseeability and talk about building the framework that we want to successfully navigate a risk management culture. And so the first slide here on this topic is on vision, which obviously goes to foreseeability. And there you see those two words that I used earlier, that we need to examine and look into the future, if you will, with imagination and or wisdom. Hopefully it's both imagination and wisdom. And so we did that here 2 years ago when we kind of began to restructure the direction that and the activity that we were trying to accomplish here at Public Entity Partners. We said let's kind of break it all down. Let's go back and rebuild with our strategic plan. And so we began with a vision, and to my knowledge, and I've been here over 36 of the 40 little over 42 years that Public Entity Partners has been around. I don't know that we ever had a vision statement before. And so we began to take a look at that. And so we decided, hey, let's make sure we've got it right internally before we start impressing upon others to create this culture that we believe in. So our leadership team here and our board of directors met for 3 days in late 2020. And we developed a vision that says we want to be making a difference in the lives of Tennessee public entity employees and the citizens they serve. And so we felt like that was as succinctly as possible address really what we're about, what we want to accomplish in every activity that we try to put together. So that's our vision for our strategic plan. And again, it talks about not only our staff at the cities, towns, and local agencies that we work with, but it also talks about the taxpayers, the citizens each of us are here to serve. And so that vision we felt like would give us a basis for moving forward with building the proper culture here. So the next step is, once you have a vision and a vision statement, is to develop a good handle on your mission. What we developed for Public Entity Partners was we partner with Tennessee governmental entities in providing effective risk management products and services with a commitment to member best interests. And probably that last phrase is something that I'm the most proud of in what we developed, that commitment to member best interests, because we as a public entity risk pool are here for you. We're here for our membership. And when we look at the 495 or 6 cities and towns and local agencies that we work with across the state, whether it's in workers' comp, liability, or property, or some combination of those three, we want to make sure that we make decisions with a commitment to member best interests. And we feel like that mission supports the vision that we've developed here in our strategic plan. Then the tools to build that mission we call values. And the 5 values that we identified here were service, integrity, stewardship, inclusiveness, and quality. So as we've gone through what we identified as those things that are important to us and that need to drive us toward a proper culture and providing the proper services. It'll be different for you. It'll be different for your department. It'll be different from entity to entity. So you have to take ownership of it. It's got to be very personal when you begin to build this framework. So next, once you have a good handle on the direction you're going, then you begin to build your framework. You begin to put together a mental and physical plan, a mental and physical framework for success. And what we hope to do here, and what we hope to assist each of you in doing, is creating a framework for success such that we can get the job done every day and do it with community. And I think that's been kind of the biggest paradigm shift for us in putting together a risk management culture and making sure we are successful in that risk management culture, is to really look at the people that we work with, our coworkers across the state, as a community. You know, sometimes I know we've had a number of conversations around here about this. You know, you'll talk about your work family, and yes, we all have a work family, but really it's not a family, but it is a community, and it's a community that needs to support each other within the framework that we're talking about. So once the framework is in place, then we have to go to work. The entire organization has to go to work. And so we do that through empowerment to make sure that that we've built a framework for success, but that we allow and encourage each individual within the organization to utilize their imagination and wisdom for problem solving, to make sure we're creating the policies and the coverage that our entities need. And so we want to make sure that we empower our entire organization to contribute within that framework. So with all of that said, as we kind of pivot a little here, I want to kind of pivot over to where leadership comes in to help us build this community that we're talking about, this risk management community. So let's talk about leadership a little bit. And when I'm saying leadership, I'm not talking about positional leadership. I'm talking about influential leadership, or using influence to make sure we're getting the right things done. One of the things that we've tried to do here for a number of years is lean on the 7 habits of highly successful people. And Stephen Covey, one of his 7 habits was getting first things first. And so we wanted to make sure that as we built a risk management culture, that we would get first things first. And that takes the shape of getting your thinking right before you try to get your strategy right. For many years, as a loss control consultant across the state of Tennessee, I would have the privilege of being invited if a city or a housing authority or a school system had hired a new risk manager, for example, or safety coordinator. And I would get a call from a city manager or a school superintendent. Hey, can you come out and spend some time with our new risk manager and talk about those things that are important? So we would do that. I'd go out and I'd spend an entire day with this new person, kind of especially if they didn't have a lot of public entity experience, trying to give them the lay of the land as it relates to working in the public sector, because it's, as most of you know, it's entirely different than working in the private sector. And invariably, occasionally, I would run into someone, and I knew that I needed to make sure that we get first things first. And so what I would always say is, and we usually try to say this toward the end of the day, after we've spent the day kind of going over things and looking at policy and looking at work sites and looking at various things within the city or the agency. I would say, you know, one of the most important things you can do as a new risk manager is just for the next few weeks, just get out, go to every facility, meet every work crew that you possibly can. Let people see your eyeballs and know what you're about as a human being. Make some connection. You know, you don't have to, this is kind of, to me, this is the difference between being a positional leader or an influential leader. And you say, well, I can't be a leader. I don't have anybody that reports to me. There's all kinds of opportunities for you to be an influential leader, even if you have no one who directly reports to you. And so that's what I would encourage them to do, is to get out in the field, let people meet you, let them know what you're all about and what you hope to assist them with, that you're a resource for them. And I'll never forget this in a fairly large community. I did that one day and really got along well with this new risk manager. And that was what I told him at the end of the day. I said, you really need to get out. You need to get out and make sure that they know who you are before you start sending them emails, or you start sending out new policies, new procedures, new safety observations, and those sorts of things, or going out and doing inspections, those sorts of things. So get out there first, and then all that other stuff will take care of itself over time. And you know what that individual did? They sat right there in that office, never got out, never really got to know the people, and just started working on policy and procedure. Do you think the rest of the community had much buy-in to their ideas when they didn't even know who this was, where they had an email or a new policy coming from? So you have to get your thinking right. You have to make sure that you understand what you're really trying to accomplish as a safety person, as a risk manager, as a city manager, as an administrator. Get your thinking right. Then once you've got your thinking right, then you can go about constructing your framework, go about constructing your program, your approaches, your strategies. And that's why I love this quote from the late General Norman Schwarzkopf so much. He said, leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. But if you must be without one, be without the strategy. Now, isn't that amazing, coming from a military strategist like Norman Schwarzkopf, that if you've got to be without one, be without the strategy. Get your character right. Get your thinking right about what you're trying to accomplish. Then once you've got your thinking right, you developed your framework, then you execute it. You work the framework. And if you've done what you needed to do in terms of getting your thinking right and your strategy, then execution is going to be the simple piece of it. Okay? But you just go out and work the framework. And working the framework absolutely works to build a successful risk management culture. Let's kind of lean back on our friend Peter Drucker again. This is maybe one of my favorite quotes from Drucker of all time. Said, only three things happen naturally in organizations: friction, confusion, and underperformance. Now let that sink in for a second, that if all we're doing is allowing the organization to develop naturally, you're likely only going to get friction, confusion, and underperformance. Everything else requires leadership. And so again, leaders must lead, and lead from an influential leadership position, as opposed necessarily to a positional leadership situation. So once we've kind of got a handle on the culture and how we want to lead people through that, let's talk about how you build your team. Okay. Now you say, well, I'm a one-person shop. I'm the risk manager, and I've got to do all of the risk management. Well, that's number one. That's not exactly true, because you've got people who are working in various departments within your entity who are the best risk managers that you can find, because they know really how to do the job right. You just need to find out what they know and assist them when you can. But as you build your team, as you identify people within your organization who really care about the organization, who really care about the services that you're providing to the public, you want to make sure you're building your team in the right way. And so one of the things that, and obviously this goes to hiring as well, but I'm not just talking about hiring here. I'm talking about who you bring into your team, who is going to assist you in building a risk management community. So number one, I would offer, you look for character, you look for passion, you look for interpersonal skills. We've had this as a mantra here in our organization for a long time. Yes, when you look at this list of three things, you'd like to get all of them, okay? But if you don't get anything else, get number one right. Now, is that easy? No, it takes time. Can you identify character and passion and interpersonal skills very easily in a 30 to 45 minute interview? It's not easy. So your interviews probably ought to be a little bit longer than that, quite honestly, most of the time. But that's what you're trying to identify. You're trying to identify people who will relate with other people and relate with them properly. So character, passion, interpersonal skills. If you can identify that, well, that's why we always say do it in this order. Most of us don't. We'll look at resumes and we'll look at all of the experience they've had or the training and education they've had, and those things are important. But those are the luxuries. You want to find someone who can relate with other people. So once you've got character, passion, or interpersonal skills, yes, you'd like number 2 if you can get it. That's knowledge of either your organization, your type of organization, whether you're a city or town or a school system or housing authority, or at least understand the markets you're working in. Now that's more aimed at us as we work in the insurance marketplace, the pooling marketplace, if you will. But that's the second thing you'd like, how public sector organizations work. And then 3, if you get someone who's got knowledge of the first 2, then 3 comes in, and that is technical skills that you're hiring them for within your particular entity, within your particular industry. Obviously, you'd like to get all 3, and occasionally you hit a home run and you get all 3. But if you don't get anything else, get number 1 right. If you'll get number 1 right, for most everything, you should be able to teach them the technical side of the services you're providing. So get the character, passion, and interpersonal skills right before you move on and look to the other 2 characteristics. In putting this together, I want to spend just a second with this little matrix. And some of you have seen this before. This four squares, this quadrant, as we look at this, is a matrix. Down the left axis, we're talking about technical skills, either excellent technical skills or lacking technical skills. And across the top, we're looking at character and interpersonal skills, kind of going back to that previous slide that we just talked about. And I want to give credit here, even though I don't remember the gentleman's name. But years ago, I was at a meeting of the Tennessee Association of Chiefs of Police, probably 28 years ago. And they had invited a special agent from the Department of Treasury, who was a leadership person and very good speaker. And I apologize wherever he is that I don't remember his name. I have seen this thought process expressed by Jack Welch, the leadership and management guru, and others. But so I'm sure it wasn't original to that person at the time, but it sure made an impression on me. Like I said, probably 28 or 30 years ago. And again, as you look at this matrix, let's start in the upper left-hand corner. This is that person who has excellent character and interpersonal skills, and they have excellent technical skills. And what this person from the Department of Treasury said, he goes, "What do you do with that person?" And very quickly said, "You leave them alone. You let them go out there every day and make you look good. If they've got good interpersonal skills, if they got good character, and they know what they're doing technically, don't mess them up. Leave them alone." So that's kind of an easy one. Now let's go down in the lower right-hand corner. What about that person who lacks character and interpersonal skills and is lacking in technical skills? Well, they probably need to be doing something else. And you'll see in 2 of those boxes, it says they need to go. I'm not saying you fire everybody. I'm just saying you have to do those things and review those things within your employee evaluations and your human resource processes, always with an eye toward protecting civil rights for your staff. But that person probably needs to be doing something else. And then he came over here into the lower left-hand corner. He said, what about that person who has excellent character and interpersonal skills, but they're lacking in technical skills? Well, that's where you really need to go to work as a leader, as a supervisor, and coach and lead that person. Help them develop their technical skills, because if they've arrived at your shop at age 18 or 21 or 31, 41, 51, or 61, if they've arrived there and they know that character and interpersonal skills are important. Don't let them go. Also, if they've arrived at your shop at one of those ages I just mentioned to you, and they don't yet understand that the most important thing you can do as a valuable employee, as a valuable worker, especially in the public sector, dealing with the general public out there, that the most important skill you can possess is interpersonal skills and how to deal constructively with those folks. But then let's go in the upper right-hand corner. And this is the one that threw everybody for a loop. He said, what about that person who lacks character and interpersonal skills, but they have excellent technical skills? What do you do with that person? And some of you have probably already taken a look at that and said, oh my goodness, you let them go, but they're the best wastewater treatment operator I've got. They're the best police officer or firefighter I've got. But if they've arrived at your shop without understanding how much positive interpersonal skills, how much that's important, and obviously character, then they probably need to be doing something else. Where you spend your time is in the lower left-hand corner, coaching and leading those folks who you have identified as good with good interpersonal skills, but they just lack the technical skills that you need going forward. And you'll see the little bullet at the bottom of the page that says, obviously, when you look at those gray areas between all four of those boxes, as a leader and as a supervisor, obviously we need discernment for understanding that everybody's not at one extreme or the other within those matrices. You're going to have some discernment in evaluating folks within those gray areas. But as Peter Schutz says in that quote at the top of the page, you hire character, you hire interpersonal skills, you train for the skills you need. Okay, just a couple of final things as it relates to the required position that leaders must take within an organization and within that organization's culture. One of the things that I had a management consultant many years ago was giving a presentation, and they said one of the most important thing that a leader can do is take responsibility for the spirit of the organization. Yes, we've all got work to do. We all have to get things done every day. We understand that. Our inbox is always full of things we need to get done pronto, or the general public is not going to be very happy. But the most important thing that a leader can do is take responsibility for the spirit of the organization, the morale, constantly examining the morale, having a positive attitude about accomplishment, celebrating achievement within your organization, whether it's individual achievement, departmental achievement, or organization-wide achievement. Celebrate those things, tell those stories. And again, the fourth thing, tell the success stories when people accomplish those things. And the second major point there is to tell your story. If you really want to take responsibility for the spirit of your organization, let people know who you are. Tell them your story. Okay. And I always tell people mine was pretty simple. I can remember when I was in third grade, and I know that was a long, long time ago. We were going outside and playing with dinosaurs, I think. But I remember in third grade, that was when they kind of started dividing you into kind of more remedial classes or average classes or advanced classes. And initially that confused me. I was like, well, I've been going to kindergarten and first grade and second grade with all these folks. Why are they dividing us up now? And I had a teacher just sit down and said, we don't want to slow the advanced folks down. We don't want to leave behind those folks that might need more remedial instruction. So we're going to do this. I said, okay. I said, well, I don't want to just be average. I want to be one of these advanced students. And that's really where my desire to contribute, to accomplish things started. And I'll never forget having that afternoon waiting on the bus at Bellwood Elementary School in Murfreesboro in third grade. And we had a conversation with some of my buddies. And we were all talking about, some of us aren't in the same classes anymore. And we talked about that. We all need to be about achievement. We all need to be about accomplishing what we need to accomplish. And in the context of our program here today, that's creating a successful culture. And I love this. Some of y'all have seen this before. This little box to the right talks about a conversation between a manager and an influential leader. The manager says, what happens if we invest in developing our people and then they leave us? A leader understands, well, what happens if we don't invest in developing our people and they stay? That's the difference between management and leadership. So let's talk about just a couple of final reference points. And in some of the leadership classes that I've taught over the last 5 to 10 years, some of y'all have seen this before. This is the Covey book, The Eighth Habit, and he talks about the four roles of leadership: of modeling, pathfinding, aligning, and empowering. With empowering obviously being the culmination or the fruit of the other three. So he goes through, and I encourage you to spend some time with this graph or with the book itself. But you see, I've got one particular thing circled, and that is group involvement in mission and strategic decisions, going back to developing that vision and mission of a risk management culture. Don't just try to do it on your own. Don't try to, again, do what that one risk manager did and just sit in their office and send out emails and missives and new policies. Engage people, build your team. Even if you're a one-person shop, build your team who want to contribute. You can do that through either a safety committee, a multidisciplinary safety committee that someone from every department is involved in, or an accident review process. But get the group involved in understanding how to build this culture that of safety for our people, the public, and our property that we all really want. And that, to me, that really leans back on an old proverb. Matter of fact, I think it's in the book of Proverbs a couple of times, that there is safety in a multitude of counselors. A multitude of counselors just means you've got group involvement. When you're looking to make decisions, when you're looking to build vision, mission, and values, engage a group to do it. Then this little grade sheet. This is one of my favorite things dealing with leadership, and really it deals with all of us, whether we lead or not. But it comes from Cuddy Glick and Benninger's Dynamics of Warmth and Competence Judgments book, and they created this little 7-item, 7 judgments scale and grading process. And this is what we all, it says that all leaders get judged on these things. All of us as coworkers get judged on these things. So let's look at all 7 very quickly as we start to wind things down. Number 1, kindness. Do you care? And you might even want to take a second as you look at this graph. It says, do you care? What's your kindness grade? What's your kindness judgment that you would give yourself from a 0 to 10, with 0 being low and 10 being the highest? So give yourself a grade there. Do you care about your coworkers? Number 2, servanthood. Do you seek the best interest of others and the organization? Grade yourself on being a servant, being a steward of taxpayer funds, that sort of thing. 0 to 10. Number 3, character and honesty. Can you be trusted? 0 to 10. Number 4, friendliness. Do you connect with others? There's those positive interpersonal skills that we talked about earlier. Number 5, power. Can you deliver what you say you're going to do? Can you deliver what you've promised? Give yourself a grade on 0 to 10. Number 6, skillfulness. Can you lead? Can you get the job done? Can you help build this culture that we're talking about? Number 7, intelligence. Do you really comprehend the challenges and the opportunities set before you, set before your particular disciplinary department, and the entire organization? So as you've given yourself a grade on all 7 of these 7 judgments from Cuddy, Glick, and Benninger, it says these 7 judgments distill down into 2 essential qualities of leadership: warmth and competence. So what the book says to do is to give yourself a grade, add all that up, divide it by 7, and you're going to get a grade. your average warmth and competency score. And let's say you worked through all that and you were brutally honest with yourself. You go, I'm not even sure I'm a 5. I think I'm like a 4.5 overall in terms of warmth and competence. So what do? Do you just quit? Well, let's ask this question. What is the most appropriate score? What do you want it to be? What's the success score? I always tell people when I ask that question, I'm always struck with ignorance and apathy. I don't know and I don't care. I don't care what your score is. Okay, if your score is a 3, guess what? Within 3 or 4 weeks, it can be a 5. If your score is a 5, within 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, your score can change. It depends on whether you decide to work on these characteristics of kindness, servanthood, character and honesty, friendliness, power, skillfulness, and intelligence. So whatever your score is, it can change. You just got to make a decision that you want to get better at these particular judgments. Whether you're a leader or not, if you're just a coworker, you're going to be judged on these things. So where can your score go? It's entirely up to you. But take the time to be honest with yourself, to grade yourself on these elements. And then if you're a leader, if you're a supervisor and you really want to get brave, print this slide off and hand it to all of your direct reports and say, hey, be honest, be brutally honest, grade me on all these things and see what they say. And again, whatever they say, can it get better? Yes, it can get better. And then finally, some takeaways, 7 takeaways that as we incorporate leadership and building a risk management culture to take care of your people and the public and your property. There are 7 things that will separate your organization from the others if you want to. It's a decision. Number 1, commit yourself to cultivating skills aimed at being an authentic, influential leader, not just a positional leader. If you expect to be followed because of a title, it's not going to happen. You need to cultivate yourself, cultivate skills aimed at being an authentic, influential leader. Number 2, engage the senior leaders of your organization or your team that you're building, even if you're a one-person shop, of people who are committed to the mission of a risk management culture. But engage that group to define and later refine the mission of your organization, the mission that your processes and your technical expertise is trying to accomplish. Number 3, develop and cultivate work relationships built on trust and respect. There's your culture. We've been doing training here on civility versus incivility and building a culture of respect within organizations. That's really what you want your risk management processes and risk management operation to accomplish, is that you've built a culture of respect and civility within your organization. Number 4, take responsibility for the spirit of your organization. Directly back to that quote from earlier in this presentation from that management consultant from many years ago. Take responsibility for attitude, morale, and the spirit of your organization. Number 5, I hope goes without saying, but unfortunately it doesn't. Avoid micromanagement like the plague. Let people contribute. Let people exhibit their imagination, their wisdom in accomplishing the aspects of the job that need to get done. But avoid micromanagement. Give people within the guardrails, give people the leeway of getting the job done, or from time to time, the leeway to make mistakes. Number 6, work daily on your warmth and competence score. Whatever score you've given yourself today, it can change. It can get better. It can get worse. But obviously, we want to work daily that it gets better. And number 7, relentlessly focus on the mission of you personally and your department and your organization, and continually talk about vision, mission, and values. Continually reaffirm those things. So with that, we're going to wrap things up. I'm going to turn it back over to Heather to see if we have any specific questions or things we can address before we wrap things up.
We don't currently have any questions in the chat box, but
Okay.
I'm hoping people will open up and let us know what questions they may have at this point.
Okay. Well, we'll wait a second or two while you're contemplating that. I know Heather will be sending out a link to the program. We will also be sending out a PDF file, kind of handouts, if you will, of all of these slides. So you'll get all these slides in the aftermath of the presentation. But please, if you've got questions or thoughts or other issues you'd like to throw out there, please let us have them.
While everyone's thinking about this, I've got from Jessica Crouch, no questions, but I thoroughly enjoyed this presentation. I will be sharing this with all department heads at the City of Paris.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Want to remind everybody that we have our final spring Partnering for Success webinar coming up on May 25th. We will be presenting local government employment claims you can avoid. This will be presented by Casey Crane. She is an attorney with the firm Farrer and Bates. If you've not already registered, please visit our website to register, or you can contact me directly and I will get you registered. But we will wait a few minutes to see what questions we may have here.
Okay.
Just wanted to get that reminder out there.
Absolutely. And in addition to the job that Casey will do, just for all, she did some internal training for us on employment issues a couple of months ago, and she was fabulous. So I know you'll enjoy the presentation that Casey will do toward the end of this month, I guess.
Yes.
And I wanted to remind you to be on the lookout after or as we approach July 1st. We'll have our annual Safety Partners Workers' Comp grants will be launched. We'll also be launching, as we go through the fall, like I mentioned earlier, some training scholarships that deal with risk management, both at the state level, at the Tennessee Prima Conference in early November, and I think we do either three or four of the scholarships to go to the National Prima Institute educational event in late October. So be on the lookout for those things.
And in addition to that, our symposium registration will be opening on Thursday.
Oh, awesome.
We will have information coming out in our Partners News newsletter on Thursday, so be on the lookout for that. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, please reach out to me, Heather Hughes, and you can either call me or email me, and I will get you signed up for our newsletter, but the registration will be opening on Thursday. We do not have a definitive schedule yet, but there is more information on our website currently.
Yeah, our risk symposium in what is it, August
24th,
5 and 6, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kind of that last week of August. It's always a great time, great information. We try to provide as much of credit, whether it's CMFO or if it's police post credit, if there's a law enforcement class. So we try to run down those sorts of things and get those for you. So please try to make plans and put it on your calendar to attend our symposium. There's no registration fee. You just got to get here and spend the night. And we try to put a great program together for you. So I think you'll enjoy our risk symposium if you've never been.
We've just got a lot of information for people today.
Yeah, we do. Well, I don't know if I put everybody to sleep or everybody just already knew all this, but thank you all again for listening in. And if we can ever do anything for you, just reach out to any of our team. We've got a team of rock stars here that do great work for local government across the state, and I'm proud of them, and I hope you are as well. And I hope that you lean on them. We try to train each other, that we want to be an extension of your city or agency staff. And so lean on us, call us up. We'll try to help out in every way we can. Heather, with that, I'll turn it back to you to wrap it up.
Well, we appreciate everyone's time today. We are here to serve you, and we look forward to serving you in the future. The recording will come out. It will take a few days for us to get the recording completed for you, but we will be sending everyone the recording and the handouts. And if anyone needs anything prior to receiving it or has any questions, please reach out to me, Heather Hughes, Hughes at pepartners.org. And everyone have a great afternoon. We look forward to our next webinar on May 25th and look forward to having you join us on then. Have a great day.